Hello everyone! Today I will be sharing with you my very favorite atmospheric reads for the fall. My name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another installment in my Autumn Obsessed series. So there are so many things that I look for in a spooky autumn read, but the number one I think is atmosphere. I am more likely to pick up a book, whether it is just cozy or magical or just spooky, based on if there is good atmosphere. And I think that's actually a huge reason why I like scary stuff, is because authors of thrillers really know how to build tension using the atmosphere, but I also feel like it can feel way more magical when authors use things like food or the setting, the location to really build tension and to really describe their story. So I have compiled a list of all of my favorite books with atmosphere. So these are all books where I feel like the atmosphere was a 10 out of 10. Some are spooky, some are just cozy, some are not even set in autumn time, but they remind me a lot of autumn, so hopefully you will find a couple of books that you enjoy. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So starting off, I have 3 middle grades where the atmosphere is amazing, absolutely impeccable, and the first, to absolutely no one's surprise, is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I am so obsessed with this book. I think it is perfect in every single way, but the atmosphere in this is done so well. So I really feel like Neil Gaiman builds the atmosphere with setting. The entire thing takes place in a graveyard, and the whole time you just read it and you feel so chilled to the bone, but also kind of cozy. It's really strange. I feel like he does a really great job at blending this really cold and scary, spooky environment with feeling like home, because that is the home of the protagonist, whose name is Nobody Owens. So this book is about a boy named Nobody Owens, or Bod for short, and he is raised in a graveyard by ghosts when his parents are brutally murdered. It doesn't actually describe the murder too brutally in this book because it is for kids, but it is a little bit chilling and a little bit scary in the opening chapter. So if you're sensitive to that, just letting you know. But I really, really, really love this book. I highly recommend it for anyone who wants something kind of spooky but also wants a magical feel, because this felt very, very magical and I really, really loved it a lot. The next book is another book that I'm sure you are not going to be surprised to see, and that is A Pinch of Magic by Michelle Harrison. So I read this originally around Christmas time, but this actually takes place, I believe, either on October 31st or the day after October 31st, so it is perfect for spooky time. This is about 3 siblings, and they are all cursed basically, but they are also all bestowed a magical gift. And it's about how they use those magical gifts to try to break their family's curse. The great thing that Michelle Harrison does about this is she incorporates little bits of food along with their journey, and she really does a great job describing things. So like in the opening chapter, Betty is taking her little sister and they're trying to go, I think, to like a fair that is on a different island, and she is describing all of the food and fun that's going to be at this fair. And then we have the atmosphere of like getting in a cold rickety boat and trying to row over there, and they also all live kind of in this pub, so there is like this really cozy old English feel for the pub, and it's just really, really amazing. Like every detail that Michelle Harrison does and puts into this book is so well thought out and so atmospheric, and I really, really cannot recommend this book enough. The next book that I recommend that has just tons of atmosphere is The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and this is by Kelly Barnhill. I know that this is a little bit of a classic and a staple in the middle grade, I guess, age category, and there is a reason for that. I feel like this book is just so impeccable. So this is about a swamp witch, and the swamp witch essentially takes unwanted children to the neighboring town, but when she is taking them through the forest, she actually feeds the children starlight, because starlight, I guess, sustains them kind of. And then one day she accidentally feeds this little girl moonlight, and the moonlight gives her magic, and so she decides to adopt this little girl for her own. Everything about this is so amazing. Like, I absolutely loved the setting in particular. This all takes place in a cozy swamp. I know that sounds weird, like it's a juxtaposition, right? Like, how can a swamp be cozy? But the swamp, which makes her beautiful little cabin very, very cozy and atmospheric. And I really want to visit there. Everything about it seems so magical, so safe, so wonderful. And I love the characters with all of my heart. This is such a great pick for autumn, but also for really any time of the year. I highly, highly recommend this book. So next up, let's go ahead and move on to YA. The first book here is Caraval, and this is by Stephanie Garber. I read this and I absolutely loved it the first time I read it. I actually was doing a YA book club because I think I was the young adult coordinator for my public library at the time, and everybody who read this loved it, and I loved it as well. This also gives really, really strong night circus vibes while still being totally an original idea, so I highly recommend it if you liked that book at all. So this is about a girl named Scarlett, and Scarlett really wants to go to this magical place called Caraval, where it is essentially kind of like a carnival island, sort of. It's hard to explain, where everything on the island is actually an illusion, but it seems like real magic. And she has been really, really desperate to want to go for years and years, but you have to be invited. And one year she is magically invited by the person who runs this entire like magical Caraval thing. And he invites her and her sister, but then her sister ends up being kidnapped as part of this elaborate game, and Scarlett has to try to save her sister. And it's amazing. I mean, there is so much really great food described in here. There's really, really awesome like magic set in here, the illusions. There is a romance set in this book, and I loved it. I thought it was so atmospheric, so packed with whimsy, so packed with magic. It was dark. And I really, really, really love this book a lot. The next YA I have here is The Wicked Deep, and this is by Shea Earnshaw. I actually buddy read this, I think 2 years ago with my friend Allie, and we both really, really loved it. One thing that I really remember that was done well in this book was the way food was described. You guys know I really like food. I'm a foodie. I love food. And every time they describe food in this book, I was like, wow, okay, great, I'm hungry. This is about this little coastal town, I think in Oregon, I wanna say, and the town is like cursed. Basically, there were these 3 women called the Swan Sisters who were hanged for being witches, and every single year they're supposed to come back and basically possess the bodies of 3 women, and those women lure men to their death. So we're kind of just trying to figure out if that's true, if it's not true. We're following our main protagonist named Penny. There's a little bit of a romance in this, and it's just such a great read. The next book is a book that I actually read for, I think, Spookathon last year, and I ended up loving this book. I think I binged it in a day. It was really scary though. Like, I had never read a thriller really, and it was like my first introduction to thrillers, and there are a couple jump scares in here. So if you scare off easily like me, you might be kind of scared. I don't know, but I thought it was amazing, and it's actually one of my very favorite YAs, and that is Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. I thought this was so good. So this is about a girl named Sarah, and Sarah's sister has disappeared. And where they live, there is like this haunted road basically that only appears, I don't know, like once every other year on a certain night, and it's supposed to be cursed. And if you're on the road, it's sort of like a game. Like, you have to stay on the road or bad stuff happens, but the entire thing is just plagued with all of these horrible obstacles. It's really, really hard to get through. And I don't even know why you do it. Like, I don't even know like what the prize is at the end, because I'm pretty sure the prize at the end is just seeing a ghost. So I would not be playing that game, thank you. I prefer to stay home and binge Netflix. But Sarah is interested in going on this road because she is convinced that her sister has actually gotten on this road and is lost. And the whole thing is just like this really cool psychological thriller. I thought it was fantastic. I really, really love it, and I feel like the atmosphere vibes for being creepy and spooky and scary, unmatched, unparalleled, absolutely perfect. And then the final YA that I have here is Neverworld Wake, and this is by Marisha Pessl. So this one does not take place in autumn. I actually believe it takes place like at the start of summer, but for some reason the vibes it gives off are spooky enough for autumn, so I highly recommend it around this time of year. This is following Beatrice, and Beatrice has lost her boyfriend. I think he died a year ago, and she used to be very, very close with all of her friends, but after his death, they've all kind of drifted away, and they decide to get together one night before they go off at university. I think they're all very, very like obscenely wealthy, except for Beatrice, and they all meet at, I think, her friend's mansion, which is on the coast. When they are there, a storm blows in and a stranger comes and says that time has become stuck. To get out of this time loop, they have to make this very impossible decision, and I'm not gonna say what the decision is, and they're just kind of stuck repeating the exact same day. But there are so many great things that this book does. I love like the mansion that they're all in. I love all of these really tense relationship dynamics. I love this atmosphere of having to repeat the day. There is always a storm, and the storm is always really like atmospheric and creepy, and everything about it makes me feel cozy. Everything about it makes me want to snuggle under a blanket. I just feel like everything is done so well, and specifically the setting is just amazing. There are so many details about how time works here and different things that are happening within the time and within the days. You see a lot of deterioration of time. It's just really, really well done. I think it is phenomenal, and I highly recommend it to every single person. All right, and we are on to our last 4 books, and they are all adult. So the very first one that I have to recommend is The Secret History by Donna Tart. This is not a book for everyone. I know actually some of my very favorite BookTube creators don't like this book, so take it with a grain of salt that I am recommending this, but I happen to love it. Around autumn, one of my very favorite things to do is to read about dark academia. I love the idea of going back to school. I'm currently in grad school right now, but I miss going to like physical school. I really loved going to my university. I love going back to school in general. I just feel like it's such a cozy vibe of like the crisp autumn leaves and friends and really beautiful building and architecture. So I love stories that take place at universities like in general. This is about a group of kind of toxic friends, and they all go to this elite New England school. You are told from the very beginning that one of their friends is murdered, and we basically try to figure out why that happened and who murdered this person and why they are covering it up. And it's really fantastic. It's a slow burn. I know a lot of people actually complain about how slow it is, but I love it because I feel like the atmosphere is really building the whole time. Donna Tart really does a great job at describing like what the weather is like and how cold and how crisp it is. And everything about it just feels cozy and unsettling, and I loved it. Next up, we have a thriller, and the thriller is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I loved this book so much. I think it's my favorite thriller that I have ever read. I just feel like it's kind of unmatched and so amazing. This follows our main protagonist, Jules, and Jules is kind of down on her luck and she needs some cash, and so she decides to apartment sit essentially in this very elite and important private complex in New York City, Manhattan. And so we've got some like New York City vibes here, but like all of the atmosphere is actually from the tension of this building. So this is a very old crumbly building, and Jules is trying to figure out if there are any secrets in this building, because one of the rules is that the tenants can't speak to her and she can't speak to them, and she feels like there is something really dark and sinister happening, and she's trying to figure out what that is. And if you like haunted house stories, if you like things that go bump in the night, if you like just feeling really tense atmospheres, I think you're really gonna like this. I feel like everything about it was so well done. It was really, really tense and so atmospheric, like just such a good job. Such a great job. I loved it. Well done, Riley Sager. Next up, we have one of my very favorite books of all time, and that is Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Now, my disclaimer here is that this book is not going to be for everyone, but for those of you who do love it, this will be a book unlike any other book you ever read. This is one of the most genre blending, amazing, incredible, and insightful books I've ever read. And I think I've read it like 3 times, and every single time I read it, I cry. So this book is about our main narrator who goes to one of his parents' funerals, but we don't know as the audience which parent has died. And when he goes back to his old house, he decides to visit his old friend's house. And his old friend's name was Letty. And he goes and he sits at the pond where they used to pretend the pond was the ocean. And as he is sitting there remembering Letty and reminiscing, he basically reverts back to being a very little boy, and he remembers this very magical summer. There is so much magic and whimsy and darkness in this book. I was just not expecting it at all. I also feel like it's very insightful and incredibly powerful as well. But one of my very favorite things is just the way he describes everything. Like, there is food described in here, and the food in here sounds amazing. There's stormy weather in here, there's atmospheric clouds in here, there is magic to be defeated in here. Everything about it was just amazing. I think it's actually one of the most atmospheric books I've ever read in my entire life, and I highly recommend it if you are looking for an adult novella. It doesn't look like a novella, but that's because I have the illustrated version. Oh, it's art. It's art. And then the last book I have here is Mexican Gothic, and this is by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. My disclaimer here is that this book is gross. But in my opinion, that's actually one of the reasons why I loved it. I feel like Silvia Moreno-Garcia did an incredible job at building so much atmosphere and tension just using the setting. And it was brilliant. I mean, I was so scared, and all she did was describe a house. So this is about Noemi, and Noemi has to go back and see her cousin when her cousin starts to send her family letters saying that she is scared for her life. And when Noemi goes to visit her cousin is very, very sick, but then she says, I was just kidding. I actually have tuberculosis. I'm totally fine. But Noemi stays anyways in this crumbling old manor just to make sure, and strange things happen. This is a book for people who like gross descriptive images, who like to be scared, who are interested in Gothic literature. I really feel like the atmosphere in here was a 10 out of 10. I feel like the scare factor in here was a 10 out of 10. I just thought everything about it was really, really well done. I took points away from this book because it was so scary with the description. However, it's that reason alone that it's making this list, because if you want something that is described very well and something that is very atmospheric and something that is very scary, look no further than Mexican Gothic. I mean, it was really, really phenomenal. Well, you guys, that is my list. I hope you find some books here that sound interesting to you or that sound really atmospheric. But yeah, I think that's it. Please let me know down in the comments if you have any recommendations for books that you think are really atmospheric. I am dying to know. Until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. Stay spooky.